So as you can see, if you have experienced CIFAR Survey Builder prior to the switch to these new common measure, it looks similar to what it looked like before. You have your grant. We have this nifty grant called CIFAR PDTA test grant. It's like the grant, we try everything in to make sure the functionality for you guys works. And I am on the test site. I'm not yet on CIFAR Suite because it has not been pulled over yet. So if you go to your survey builder, it will not look like this quite yet. So if you have multiple grants, you can still toggle between them in your select an alternative grant dropdown. You can add a new survey when you click this button. This is when it's like your new iteration of your survey administration. You can, when you do this, you can change the order of the measures, but you cannot delete any of the measures because all the common measures are required. You give it a name. If you run different sites, you can have it by site. You can have all your sites together. We just want to make sure you know which iteration of the common measures you are uploading or creating here. Once you have created your survey, these nice buttons pop up. So as in the previous version, you have the buttons to print your survey, pre-post, both in English and in Spanish. What is new is the import section. You now have a button for pre-data, for post-data, and these blue buttons are the data that your participants complete themselves, whether on paper or on Qualtrics or on Survey Builder. But with the new common measures, we have a few measures that we ask staff to track for the participants. Instead of you merging those documents, you can just have two different uploads. For example, for the youth, it is just the participation data and post. So you have your participant pre-data, your youth do all of that. Participant post data, your youth do all of it except for participation level, and that goes in the staff entered post data upload. And then once you pull out a report, those data sets will be merged into one. So you will see all the measures into one report. As the previous version, you have the survey capabilities for online. When we're rewinding just a little bit. When you set up your survey, you will answer the questions about your program design. So how many times do you offer your program? How long does it run? That goes when you set up the survey. Another new button that we have is the staff survey, because new is that we ask your staff to complete program quality at the post. So with the staff survey button, you create that survey. And your staff can let us know about program quality. As in the previous survey builder, you can duplicate your survey so that you don't have to recreate the survey that's going to be the same as your previous versions. You can just duplicate it. And a new thing is that you can mark a survey as completed. So for example, if your program runs with new participants every year, you have your pre-data uploaded for year 2. You have your post data uploaded for year 2. You mark it as complete so that you know, like, that year of data is done. We're ready with it. We can move on to the next iteration. And it will just show up in the survey builder in your list of surveys as you have completed the survey. You can still duplicate it though. This is just a quick overview. When we have our demonstration in July, we will go into much more detail in this, but we wanted to be able to show you that we really have been working on Survey Builder these past couple of years. So I'm going to stop the share. There we go.
I'm muted while I'm trying to present. Another question we kind of anticipated was, or a question that we get a lot is, which of the measures do I need to collect? And the answer is you need to collect all of them. So we wanted to list out exactly what that means. And so these are the evaluation requirements. These are the expectations for what data collection looks like for a SciFar project. And so up at the top, we've got demographics, participation, and engagement. These are parts of the logistics or nuts and bolts of what your process looks like when running your program. Another process outcome we have is program quality. And then our two outcome measures for your participants are life skills and resilience. And we wanted to highlight a little bit about how we've selected these measures or how these measures came about. And Michelle, I'll make sure that I show the time and date for the demo in just a second so you can add it to your calendars. So why these measures? In the previous sets of common measures, programs collected data that was more aligned to the content or topic area of their program. And so in order to help us with evaluation at the program level, at the SciFar program level, we identified these sets of common measures that all sites could use, but that we knew were connected to elements of high quality programs, so that we know that regardless of content or topic area, high quality programs do these things: fostering supportive relationships, creating safe environments, providing opportunities to learn and develop skills for both participants and staff, and engage in activities that are directly related to program goals. So if we're doing these things, regardless of the content or topic of your project, you're going to be seeing great outcomes for your site, for your participants. One thing that folks mention a lot is the value of qualitative data. And certainly we know that USDA values examples and quotes and different things that you can share with them in thinking about your impact. And we know sites value the things that qualitative data can add to your quantitative data. So the pieces that qualitative data offers that quantitative data doesn't. And so later this summer in August, the PDTA Center will have an Evaluation Institute kind of pop-up resource review about some different resources from the CDC, Data Systems Center, and others that looks at how you can collect and analyze high quality qualitative data and kind of different ways to look at your qualitative data. One of them is this really cool heat map that I know I shared with Autumn last year when she was thinking about defending her dissertation. She had some qualitative data that you can map out in this really interesting heat map, thinking about how often folks mentioned or agreed with different statements in your qualitative data.
So the not the most important reason, but a very important reason is that SciFar is a line item in the budget, and Congress can vote to remove that line item. As long as we show that SciFar is improving the lives of SciFar participants, the chances that the budget will be decreased or eliminated are much, much smaller. So with these new common measures, we can actually show that across the United States and its territories, the programs are improving the lives of participants. And we now have a much bigger sample because we can use all 40 to 45 programs and not just compare the STEM programs to the STEM programs, to nutrition programs to the nutrition programs, etc. So this is a very important reason of why we ask you to collect and send us your common measures data.
One example of an analysis that we did recently and have shared just initially with USDA to get their feedback was a cost-benefit analysis or a return on investment analysis. So we completed this using data from all active grants in 2018. We chose 2018 because, as many of you know, in 2019, a whole slew of grants came on board. And so in 2018, we had a lot of active grants who were not in year one. They were actively programming and collecting data and had participants because they were in years 2 through 5 of their programs. So these are kind of stylized analyses comparing per participant costs with benefits at varying levels. So if we assumed that a program had a 10% effect size, what would be the net benefit for participants compared to the per person cost of the program? And just as an example for health, the per person cost in 2018 of a SciFar program was about $348.31. And assuming an effect size of 10%, so that there was a 10% improvement in outcomes for the participants of that program, the net benefit was $725.59. So these kinds of analyses, using the data and outcomes that folks share with us, help us to demonstrate the really immense value that projects are contributing to their community, and help to make sure, as Suzanne said, that the program continues, that the level of support that folks receive as part of the SciFar program continues, and that we're able to offer this really unique and wonderful funding opportunity to folks. And by we, I meant USDA. The USDA is able to offer this unique funding opportunity to folks in different communities. Sarah, I'll make so the pop-up event for qualitative data will come out in the newsletter. It'll be announced there.
Thank you.
Yeah. So those were kind of the questions we anticipated from folks, or questions we hear a lot, our little FAQ to kick things off. But we did want to open it up and see if folks have general questions or anything that you came here wanting to ask us, or that we sparked talking about those initial things. Ali, what's up?
Hi, thank you for the background information. I'm Ali Hurtado. I'm at the University of Maryland, and we are sort of in the recommended for funding. And as I'm trying to figure out the finalizing the logic model and integrating the measures, I know there are some I might need to kind of work with the coach and yourselves to fine tune some of the finalized measures, I guess. But also I wanted to check in, maybe you or others have experience with engaging students who are kind of doing a grad school, and they are interested in increasing or using some of the data or adding more to the data to work on their projects as well. Is that sort of encouraged? Is that maybe discouraged? What are some experience related to that?
I think we would never discourage more data. I think you got to know your capacity and the capacity of your participants to answer surveys. So keeping in mind kind of the length of the required common measures, and then what is the student trying to collect in addition. But I think that SciFar offers a really wonderful opportunity for folks to get involved with data, and for grad students, if they have a question that the data can answer, it can be really valuable to them. I feel like Autumn will have.
I was going to say there are a few grants that we know of where grad students are very active on the grant, and we would be happy to send those your way or you to their way so that you can discuss with them how that works. But I know of at least 2 grants where a grad student is active personnel on the grant, where they even interact with us. And so that definitely happens, yes.
Yes, please.
Make
Thank
that
you,
3.
Susan.
Now, I have
your
several.
grant too? Okay.
I have several grants that are working with grad students to enter data. I have one that has a grad student that's using the work to do their dissertation project, and several where they just have a graduate assistant that is helping in very different capacities to either collect data or do data entry or help with analysis. There's a lot of different ways, and absolutely engaging students is a cool way to get, well, I'll say it out loud, cheap labor, and to be able to further your grant. So.
And they're motivated to publish and disseminate and get things out there. I'll say that is not a unique feature of grad students, but certainly one of their driving instincts is how can I get this out there? And they can be really helpful as that motivating factor to disseminate to different audiences. And even if they have one place they'd like to disseminate it, like they'd really like to present it at this conference, if they can also make it into a product that some of your community sites or partners would be interested in as kind of a tag along to that, that can be ways to kill two birds with one stone. Thank you for that question, Ollie.
If you don't ask us questions, Adam will be starting to ask you questions, just a warning.
I think one thing that we didn't talk about, so Autumn and I were together in the last session, we were talking about planning in year one, and Ollie being here, and I also saw Andrew made me think of a question we didn't talk about in that panel with the year one folks, which was kind of what are some important milestones or good steps you've seen folks take in year one to get evaluation set up or thinking about evaluation in year one, even initially.
I'm looking for my notes because I had a whole set of them. So I would be ready to answer that question in the last session. Having a good team is really important. Starting early, talking to the people at the PDTA Center regularly about your evaluation, how you do it, how you can do it. I know, Suzanne and Stephanie have brainstormed ideas of what do we do in the middle of this pandemic to make data collection a reality, because we can't collect data in person, people can't be in rooms together. There were a lot of different hurdles that we all had to overcome in that space. Having a really strong program, either research-based or evidence-based, something existing, being ready to pilot, thinking about the program before you apply for the grant. Those are all things that are really important in setting yourself up for success, because they usually come with a standardized evaluation that helps out with that. If that's not possible, if you are creating something new and innovative, then making sure you're connecting with people who do evaluation in real life, rather than having someone as an evaluator on the team because you needed somebody in the space. Making sure that people who are on your evaluation team are familiar not only with evaluation, but with your population, with who it is you're working with, because there are some nuances to this work that we get to do where we are serving youth and families who are limited resource or vulnerable in many different ways. And doing the groundwork, like really building the evaluation. If you're using Qualtrics, spend the time in Qualtrics, make it pretty. If you're using paper and pencil, spend the time to make sure that the surveys are ready to go and printable and what have you. Make sure your sample is your sample. Make sure the people that you're attracting to your program are going to be the people that you mean to serve. And that leads us back to the big one, which was, we talked a lot about hiring last time in our session, and making sure you really have a good, strong, solid team, the whole team, like not just your state level, upper level team, but all of the folks who are working, and having folks who look like the people that you're serving, having folks who can talk to the people that you're serving. And if that's not you, finding whoever that is.
Another thing I was thinking about, and Tiffany, you mentioned this in the chat about not being afraid to ask questions, use any office hours and training CIFAR offers. And we're always here as a resource. If you have questions, we're happy to provide answers, especially if you're new to a grant. But even if you're not, if you feel like I probably should know this, but I don't by now, and don't be afraid to ask us. We've never heard anything. It won't be the first time we've heard something, and you won't be the only person in year 4 or year 5 with that question. But one thing I thought of was, if you need to create something or you need information, ask us even before you create it. So for example, if you are collecting data at a school and the school has an IRB or has a board of any kind, and they want information about what the measures are, you can always ask us. I think we have a document that we created in the past for folks about, this is the name of each of the measures, this is the author, this is what it looks like, this is what it's asking kids, and this is what it's collecting. So we can help with those kinds of things.
I would just like to add, this is Diana from NC State, just lessons learned. If you're going to use students, they graduate, they leave. So having guidelines already in place of everything that you've done so that they can come in and just have everything there in writing. As also for us, we train a lot of students, undergrad and grad students, to be in the field. So we have to know that we have to have time to train folks, and then connecting with the SciFar team, PDTA team, Suzanne, early enough so that she can get to the evaluator, the new evaluator, and really talk the language of SciFar as well.
I think I have now talked with 3 of Diana's grad students. So yes. And we are more than happy. Vivian, I see your question in the chat. Can you explain?
I think what's a check and connect would be my follow-up question.
Sorry.
No worries.
So for our program, we use something called a check and connect to keep track of student grades throughout the year. And so it's sort of, right now it's like in an Excel sheet. And I don't know if other programs use this. I don't know if Juntos uses this. But so we keep track of grades of students beginning of the year on a weekly basis. And then at the end of the year, we kind of see like if there was an increase or a improvement in grades. So that's what our success coaches do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then I don't know if I think you're familiar with that.
So I'm familiar with it only because we had some past SciFar grants that used check and connect.
Yeah.
So because it's not part of the common measures,
Okay.
it does not have to be shared with the SciFar PDTA Center. And so I am not super familiar with the data. However, we are always willing to look into that and see if we know of a resource that could be very helpful for that. Like,
Okay.
Since I don't know what the data set looks like, you know, I can't say like, oh, use that, it'll visualize it perfectly, or I don't know, but we could set up a meeting and go over the data and see how we could help visualizing that data. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, that would be great, because when we talk to like stakeholders or schools or even parents, they want to see something in either a picture or an image showing the improvement of our students in the years that they are with the program, and seeing if our program is actually having an impact on the students.
Yeah. So like we are the SciFar PDTA Center, so we want the common measures, that is required. We will keep hammering on that, but that is not our only interest, of course. We are interested in your entire program, and so we are absolutely happy to help figure out how to use your other data as well.
Thank you.
So Josset has a question about where you can find the scoring guide for the common measure surveys. And Suzanne, I don't know if you still have that up on your window.
But
you could like point it at it.
But I don't know if that's what Josset means. Josset, do you mean how, like if participants use it on paper and pencil, how to like calculate their score?
No, I was thinking of this a couple of weeks ago. I had our data, and it appears based on some of these survey items that these are like latent constructs around like problem solving where there are 6 items and you calculate a mean score, I'm assuming. But I couldn't really figure out which ones were, it was kind of fuzzy between the categories, at least in my head. And so I'm sure you have, these are validated constructs, and I just wanted to see what those were so I could do some math wrangling on my own, you know, fun things.
Yeah. And you are not the first that has mentioned this. And so I think we started creating this, or not, I think, I know because I worked on it. But I think that you are mentioning the life skills measure that has 5 specific components in it. And I see that Danny is in our session, and so I don't know if he wants to say anything about it, because he is the big brain behind the life skills measure.
I don't know that I'm big brains. In fact, I'm sure there are several on this call that would disagree with that statement. But could you repeat your question in a little more detail? Because I'm trying to track what your question is.
So I'm looking at the child skills for everyday living survey right now.
Yeah.
I just want to be able to take the data, take our results, and summarize it in a way that the survey is meant to be summarized. So I'd rather not look at item by item.
Oh, right.
It appears that these are constructs. So there's decision making, communication, and I can't figure out exactly which.
So what you need to know is which items go to what.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can get you that very easily. I'll have the team ping me, and I actually might even remember right now and go right to my file and send it to them.
Awesome.
I will make a note and send it to Josset, or Josset, the measure is in the Dropbox. I don't know if you still have that link, but there in the paper measure or PDF in the Dropbox, it's much more clear which statements go with what.
Down.
Yep, it's broken down. Yep. So there you can find it. And also, I believe in Survey Builder, it is clearer for the participants as well. So just in Qualtrics, because the way Qualtrics works, it kind of lumps it together. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I saw Dr. Sam had a question in the chat thinking about what's the overall logic model for the SciFar program, and kind of how do you evaluate at the program level with kind of different programs running under one work. And I know we chatted about that when we met with y'all back in April or May. Time has gone too fast. And so part of what SciFar is looking at is kind of this results-based evaluation. So thinking about, are the programs at the individual level seeing positive outcomes for participants? If we want to know more about what the programs are doing, we can look deeper at that process. So we can look at an evaluation of process measures. Danny, I don't mean to keep you spotlighted so that you're up here on stage with us.
I can unspotlight him. Oh, there you go.
I thought we'd only put you on the spot for your measurement. And so, like I mentioned, we've got this results-based. Are the programs seeing the outcomes for participants that USDA is hoping for the SciFar program? So seeing improvements in resilience, seeing these different life skills that they're gaining. And then also looking deeper at the process. So do we see that SciFar programs have these elements of high quality programs going on? How often are participants meeting? What kind of dosage of the program are participants receiving? So these are the kinds of questions that we can answer at the program level, because we know that those are kind of the tenets that folks are using to engage in the SciFar program. And as you're writing your SciFar project, those are the things you're working towards. Certainly there are more elements to folks frameworks and folks logic models. So folks do collect additional data, whether that's project notebooks, whether that's additional surveys or qualitative data from participants. Say you're a workforce development program and you are collecting a different workforce development survey that you've identified that you think is high quality. or you're looking at project notebooks for a nutrition program to see how often kids are talking about the concepts that you're talking about in your program. Lots of different options for folks to answer additional questions at the project level, but those aren't things that we're considering at the program level. So at the program level, we're really using that model of high quality programs and having these outcomes that we know should come about as a result of high quality programs following that model.
And it is a little bit of a puzzle, right? I mean, I just want to be clear. There are lots of folks that question, why do we have these measures and not other measures, right? At the common measure level, because we're trying to figure out what might cut across the variety, which is the nightmare. I mean, I don't think there's a good answer there, right? And so what we keep trying to get closer, and I think we're getting closer. Are we there? No, and we're not. I don't think we'll get there in my career, which is fine, right? But I think we are making little headway, and Dr. Williams has been able to go to Congress on several occasions with the current data and make an argument for the entire effort. Where while you all have the project stuff, which is really good and really important, Congress, they have the attention span of a gnat, so we can't spend that much time on every project. We have to figure out how to speak as a whole. And so we completely understand that we're missing a lot, but we still have to capture something at a more higher level in that sense. And so we're doing that. We just finished for Dr. Williams an initial analysis of cost benefit, right? And is it perfect? Absolutely not. Is it a really good step forward? Yes. And so I just want you to, we would love to do more. This is the best we can give, given the diversity of programming that's going on within SciFar.
And I think too, thinking about what's the framework for SciFar and what's the vision. Up next, we have that coffee and conversations with Dr. Williams, and that could be a really wonderful question to come and ask her about, this program that's really been her brainchild and that they've set up. What's her intention for the ideal SciFar project? Does she have additional insights into those different things? And that could be a really rich conversation we could all have.
So can I jump in? I'm sorry, I wasn't sure the etiquette. I didn't know.
Of course, yeah.
Michelle Walsh from Arizona. Just you did just mentioned, working on it. Is this perfect? No, and not. So is it if we have feedback, or the community groups, we have feedback on different measures to provide, is that helpful? Is that useful? For other, like, it'll be great to look through the documents and some of the background about why some of these measures are chosen as opposed to other ones that measure other constructs, in the community. I know y'all put a ton of work into doing that and getting there. And so just figuring out how you're moving forward. Are you refining these, doing your own work on?
This is a great question. What I say is we want feedback, but know that this version we're going to hang on to for at least, I would argue, 3 to 5 years, right? Because the reality is, as you know, we've gone through a fairly significant tweaking process and we're just coming out of it. We're going to try this out for a little while, and you can't really try it out for less than 3 years and think you've done it justice, quite frankly. And so, but these folks on this call are amazing at keeping information and organized so that when it comes time for the next set of tweaking, one will go back out to you again and ask you, right? Because we want to make sure we get the most current stuff. But for this round, we are locking in right now. It's been quite an effort, and I appreciate you acknowledging that already. And so we're going to lock it down probably for the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful to know.
There is a question in the chat of whether we can post the validation papers for the common measures. And the answer is yes, for some we can. And no, for others we can't, because we made some changes to the previous common measure. So we are redoing the psychometric work that's necessary for validation. But yes, that's actually something that we should have thought of posting the validation papers with the common measures. So watch for an update on the website in the near future so that those papers are just linked to it so that you can go back and read. Yes, thank you, Jeffrey.
And to piggyback on what Suzanne said, for reliability and validity, where we may have shortened or condensed or slightly reworded a measure, and we're going back and doing those analyses to help us get there and to make sure that we have the data we need. We do invite you to share your data with us, and that really helps to power our analyses, and we can give you the best information we have about these measures, especially we know that some measures that are out there, I'm not saying not our measures, but certainly it's a common perennial problem for surveys and measures of all kinds, that they're used with a very specific population and might not have the same results or see the same features when you're using them with more diverse populations. And we know that one of the unique features of SciFar is that you're working with these really diverse communities. And so your data is especially valuable in making sure that we've got kind of an equitable look at what's the reliability and validity of this measure when we use a true sample or a better population.
Well, and I want to add that if we have a group of participants who are struggling to answer measures, or we need to change language or whatever, that's where having a really qualified evaluator or staff who's been really trained well in the room becomes really important, because then they can walk through the measure with the person. And I know right now we can't have them in the room, but we have like audio ways or on Zoom ways or different ways of making the evaluations more accessible and walking through that language with especially our littles, because our littles are going to struggle to read some of the language that's in some of these measures. It just is what it is. And we have to have folks who can help with that, who can help them to understand what it is that the measure is saying. And I think that is good evaluation practice, period, making sure that you have someone who can help on the spot to walk people through the measures.
I think we've got time for maybe one more question.
David, I just want to say that I'm laughing about your chats. Better to tweak than to twerk. Thank you.
Hi, Stephanie. Is there any way for us to get access to the 2018 cost benefit study so that we can also see that, and maybe we'll try to replicate for other data or for our reporting purpose?
So we've submitted it to Dr. Williams at USDA, and we'll kind of see where she wants to channel it next. If they're thinking of that as an internal document that they want to think about, if they'd like us to tweak it or not twerk it for slightly different view or different outcomes. But certainly if we're allowed to share it with you, we absolutely will. And believe me, we've been working on it for quite some time and would really love to kind of get it out there if we can and publicize and disseminate it.
Thanks.
So I see that Andrew had a question about statistics specifically, and he's asking about syntax and what types of stats packages we're using. I know what I use, but I'm not sure what you use at the center. So
we are slowly shifting ourselves to R. So we're giving ourselves one more year of SPSS to learn how to use R. So it can be a little bit more open sourced. And maybe, yeah, that's an interesting thing to think about, kind of sharing the syntax we use, having a repository for projects, if there are projects that want to share different syntax that they use. I think I'm new to the world of open source. I've got SPSS, and I sure can send you my syntax file if you really want it, but my variable names are interesting and I've done exactly what I want to do with my data set. So that's an interesting thing to think about.
The one thing that's kind of made me question over the years is being through maybe 4 rounds with SciFar is the challenge of not seeing huge gains from one year to the next with our student populations, and especially on things that we think we're going to have the biggest impact on, grades or school attendance. And we want to see these big gains. And sometimes we're wondering if we're just, if we're really asking the questions right, or, if we're collecting the data from the schools, is the school data really showing us what we want to show? Are we getting the students at the right timing where we're actually able to see gains? There's a bunch of questions that come along those lines that I'm sure a lot of us share. So there's a lot of college kind of prep programs now in SciFar, and I would wonder if, you know, maybe a conversation with others about that might be a helpful thing sometime.
Yeah.
Even just like a.
Well, we do
Well, we
do,
could
it's a
hold-
great idea. We do these networking calls with folks working on the same issue.
Yeah.
And so that could be a good idea for a networking call. So we'll put that down.
Great. Awesome.
Whoa.
All right.
Well, that was good. 45 minutes went by much faster than sometimes they do when you're on a Zoom meeting. So that's a good thing, I would say.
Especially with the evaluators in the room.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate it. If you have extra questions, you can always reach us scifarpdta@umn.edu, and we'll see you at office hours. We look forward to you keeping Suzanne and I company. Otherwise, it's just the two of us doing our work in a room together, which is also fun, but not the same. All right.